Warning: the episode you are about to listen to most likely contains graphic language, details of violence and murder, and may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Murder with My Mother, the true crime podcast where I talk murder with my mother.
Hey, yo! What's up?
What's up, mother? Happy recording day.
Yeah, happy recording day. Happy belated Easter to all our listeners.
Yeah, happy 420 because we're recording on 420. Used to be my favorite holiday. But I'm still smoking pot, but I'm taking a not so celebratory approach this year.
I actually thought of you today every time they mentioned 420.
Nice. And your other kid, I'm sure. That's turned into quite the
Rastafari. I forgot I had another kid.
Oh, yeah. The best is my brother went from extreme, zero anything ever, and then all of a sudden smoked pot, and then a month later had dreads and smokes his personal size doobies are the size of fingers, and he smokes one every 5 minutes. So you're welcome.
He does?
Yeah. Okay, you wouldn't notice.
Way to rat your brother out.
Yeah, but my brother came home from school for the weekend for Easter, and nobody told me he was coming, so it was really a nice surprise to see him.
And it wasn't even supposed to be a surprise, we just forgot to tell you.
Nobody told me, yeah. And then my grandma came, my mugga, I call her mugga, we've talked about her on other episodes. She no longer apparently listens to the podcast. Apparently nobody...
apparently lots of people have dropped off. I hope it's nothing we did.
No, but it's everyone that we're related to, so maybe the secret shots of...
Maybe they got too much shit to do.
Maybe. Fucking, I thought we were a priority. I guess not. So, there's that.
Fuck them if they can't take a joke.
There we go. Fuck them. Fuck them, fuck them, fuck them. But, yep. What else is new, Mom? What's new with you? What's new and exciting? I know you're getting ready to go on your trip. You're getting poked here and poked there, getting all your vaccinations.
Yeah, so I just had my last Hep shot, Twinrix, yesterday, and I did the accelerated program because I waited till the last minute, as per usual. So I had all 3 of the series done in 1 month.
Nice. Which do you advise people to do that? Or maybe?
I mean, I've had enough shots this year that it's just shoot me up with whatever. I've had more shots this year, I think, than I've had since I was a baby.
Oh, well, that's good. I mean, you'll be nice and protected.
Watch me get Hep and COVID.
As you have to stay in the country you're in and not come back.
So my main reason for getting my Hep shot done was that I want to maybe get a tattoo while I'm there, and I think it's probably a good idea.
A stick and poke one?
I don't know.
That's what they do there.
No, they have regular ones.
Yeah, but they're known for the stick and poke.
Well, I don't like really the way those look.
But why don't you just get one here?
Well, because they're cheap there. I'm gonna go
that's
get a
definitely not the... That's not the
I'm gonna get no regrets.
Oh, God. Just get, your grandkids' names but spelled wrong.
Yeah. I guess we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, well, that's exciting. Again, really excited for you. No jealousy here at all.
Yeah, so I'm leaving next Friday, which is pretty exciting.
I'm gonna crash when I'm driving you to the airport.
No!
I'm just gonna crash on purpose.
And Danika's gonna have her 30th birthday in May, and I'm gonna miss it. So.
Yeah, and my firstborn is turning 10. You're also gonna miss that.
I'm gonna miss that too.
I just reiterate that on every episode till you leave. But no, that's really exciting. Nothing really over here on the front of this.
I think they said that the 6th wave is approaching us.
Awesome. Something I really want to hear, and something you probably don't want to happen while you're in another country.
Well, I don't really care. Once I'm there, I have millions of dollars worth of health insurance that they make you get, and
oh, cool, you'll be fine.
Whatever, I don't care as long as I can get there. That's my thing. That's my jam.
Yeah.
And it's just gonna suck because if I change countries from Thailand to Vietnam to Singapore to be
for all the murderers listening,
any of those, yeah.
Jatin Patel, if you want.
Anyone wants to come get me.
Yeah, you know exactly
I'll
her
be a
itinerary.
drunk ninja on the beach.
Catch her at the full moon party on the 14th.
No, that's on the 16th.
Oh, sorry. Well,
Anywho,
I'm really excited because, again, like I've said probably in the last 3 episodes, I'm really excited because then when we decide to go, once my children are all grown and don't need to breastfeed off me every 5 seconds, we can go and you can be like a pro and you can just take me all around. I
yep,
honestly, if I went to Thailand, I probably would just get Thai massage every day and wouldn't even go anywhere else.
I'm gonna get it every day.
I would literally get one every
Yeah.
day,
Well,
maybe
it's
even
ten
two.
bucks.
I might even get two a day.
It's under 20 for 2 hours.
That's amazing. I just went and almost shat my pants.
Is
But
it?
then the massage was so good, like I was kind of stressing about it at first. I smoked a joint and then I accidentally booked us for 2 hours when I meant to book it for one each. And then I was like, oh shit. But then, like, literally 5 minutes into the massage, I was like, I would give my firstborn child for this massage. I wasn't even worried about the price. Like, I'll pay $1,000 for this. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
even
I'm
care. But
excited.
yeah, I'm really jealous about that part specifically. But yeah,
Yeah,
it would be fun.
elsewhere in the world, the war on Ukraine is still continuing. I heard that they had used some chemical warfare a couple weeks
Oh,
ago, which is terrible. And I know that we are having some refugees come to our
yeah.
country.
Well, whatever we can do to help, right? I mean, call me whatever, but I kind of don't tune in to anything anymore. I'm kind of like trying to stay off my phone a little bit more. I mean, obviously I'm still watching true crime, which I
Yeah.
mean is probably to most people a little bit depressing, but not to me. It's like my comfort. You guys know that.
As soon as I listen to News 11:30 in the morning, which
Oh,
sometimes I do if I'm in a shitty mood on the way to work, I
oh,
turn it on like against my better judgment and I'm like having an anxiety attack 10 seconds later. So I'm like, oh fuck, I can't listen to this.
honestly, Carlos bought me a new car, and like I don't know how to work the radio in it, so I just haven't listened to the radio, and my life has been a lot like nicer. I listen to my Bluetooth, like I have
Oh,
Bluetooth, but I
good.
just have it on one setting. But I just listen to my own music or podcasts,
Or your
and
baby crying?
no, I just drown her out with the music or the
Oh,
podcast. But no, I used to listen to News 11:30 every time I drove Kiers to school every morning, and
no,
I
it's not
remember
a good
feeling like, holy
idea.
fuck,
Yeah,
like
I gotta go back to bed.
I
This
would
sucks.
I would rather listen to people getting like decapitated and
Yeah,
nice and comforting.
it's a lot. Like I think more and more I was talking to my ex yesterday and he's just like, "Are you really tired?" And I'm like, "Well, think about what we've been through in the past 2 years."
Yeah.
Like our
Everyone's just catching up.
everyone, like most people have had at least one separation. Lots of people have had babies. Lots of people have been working from home and not seeing anyone.
Well, there's
Lots
nothing
of
else
people
to
have
do.
like drug and alcohol habits now. Like we're all just like a fucking mess.
Yeah. But you know what? It's kind of leveled the playing field.
I didn't have a baby, but I had everything else.
I was like, "Did you have a baby?"
No.
No, and I had a baby. I guess there was nothing else to do in quarantine other than
Yeah, I mean, we've
do
both
it.
had a relationship change. We
Yeah.
have had,
Yeah, I had
yeah,
a whole
life change.
yeah, it
Well, I
was
really have also.
yeah, you definitely have.
I mean,
Yeah.
I went from gardening fucking 1,600 crops at the beginning of COVID to then drinking lots of wine all the time to then eating lots of Dinamitos,
Yeah.
which I'm still kind of eating, but
Yeah, you have a Dinamitos addiction. Dinamitos, if you want to sponsor Murder
I
with My
think it's actually
Mother.
called Dinamita, but
Oh,
they're
well,
pretty
they're the same as
lovely.
Takis. I'm sure you don't discriminate, really.
Takis taste more cuminish. But
I like
Dinamitas
cumin.
are, if you haven't tried them, fucking do it. It's the best decision you'll ever make.
I wonder if you're gonna have a Dinamitas withdrawal when you go to
I'm bringing 16 bags.
one carry-on just full of chips.
Yeah.
Well, today we have episode 35 for you guys, and we got a lot of requests for this one. I had specifically Amy, I had a request from her to do this one, and we have had multiple requests, so this one's been on the list. But this one is what I like to call an onion story, which is layers. There's layers to this bitch.
I hope it doesn't make my eyes water.
It might because there's so many layers and it's really sad and it's really just it's fucked up obviously because it's about murder and innocent lives are lost and all of that, but it's just it's really a curious story, this one. So with that, Mom, I don't know if there's anything else you want to catch up on. before we hop into this episode?
No, I think I'm pretty caught up.
All right, well, with that, here is episode 35. Hope you guys enjoy. On February 12th, 1999, 42-year-old Carol Sund and her 15-year-old daughter Julie, as well as their 16-year-old Argentinian exchange student, Silvina, left their home in Eureka, California and started on a vacation. They were planning to go to the Yosemite National Park. And then they were going to meet up with Carol's husband, and they were kind of doing like a 2-in-1 thing. So instead of just going on this trip, they made like a pit stop where Julie, the 15-year-old daughter, had a cheerleading competition. So what happened was they flew to San Francisco, and Carol rented a red 1999 Pontiac Grand Prix. And like I said, they stopped in Stockton, and that's where she took part in the cheerleading contest.
Ooh.
I think as well as they were looking at universities, I read in some of the research, but she's only 15, so I don't know what.
I think in the States it's a pretty big deal though, like especially if you're involved in sports and stuff, to like check out universities, see what's up.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So their plan was that they were basically from there, they were going to go to stay in Yosemite's, there's a lodge there, and it's called the Cedar Lodge. It's in El Portal, and they were going to go do touristy stuff, right? So Silvina was there for 3 months, I believe. I think so.
Yeah,
from
I think they'd
Argentina.
already done like a bunch of stuff with her.
Yeah.
And they were just trying to basically show her how beautiful the country was.
And it was winter. It was February, so it was like it was still wintry. And like even we have a place here, obviously, if you're local, Whistler or Banff. Banff is in the province over, but even they're beautiful in the summer and they're beautiful in the winter. They're more, in my personal opinion, beautiful in the winter because they're mountainous.
And when you look at the pictures of Yosemite in the winter with all of the jagged rock peaks and stuff
beautiful,
covered in snow, it's actually breathtaking.
There you go. Yeah. That's a very, very good descriptive word.
Yeah, and Carol and her husband were busy realtors. They owned a business in the Stockton area, and I guess he just really couldn't get away because he had to prepare for a business meeting. So it was the 3 ladies that were taking off for the first leg of the trip.
But yeah, and like you said, they were going to show like Silvina, right? It's like they probably wouldn't have done the same trip if it was just the 2 of them. Maybe they would have. But Silvina, they really wanted to show her how beautiful. And like, California is known for being sunny, and, this part is like beautiful winter. They had a lot of things planned, like they were gonna go skating and snowshoeing. They did, all this stuff.
Do all that stuff. So I have been to Mount Shasta in California, and it's kind of creepy. Like it has you think California, you think like hot, sunny, sandy. It's beautiful there, but Mount Shasta is got a really cool mountain range where they say aliens live, so that was kind of creepy too.
There's a lot of alien activity said to happen in California.
Yeah,
and Alberta, which is weird. And
I have never been to Yosemite. Have you?
No, I haven't. I haven't been there either.
Well, I would know if you went.
I don't know. Mother. Yeah, but maybe you wouldn't remember.
I have pretty good
lots
memory.
of stuff. Maybe you work at London Drugs. I was like, well, I didn't work at London Drugs. Anyway. So on February 15th, like we said, they had planned to do some activity. So they hiked in the Yosemite National Park, and they, like I said, they skated. They did all this touristy stuff. But that night, they all the guests had kind of checked out, and it was just them there, really, at the resort. It was quite a big resort.
It looked kind of like a motel, actually.
Yeah, it looked like kind of like 6 motels squished together.
Yeah.
With
one kind of far
pool.
In the back, and that's where they were staying.
Yeah. So the night before they were supposed to leave, they just went to the front desk. They asked for some videos, like to put in the VCR, if anyone knows what a VCR is, flashback. And they just stayed in for the night.
Decided to dance to their 8-track.
Yeah. Okay, I don't even know what that is. So the next day, the staff at the inn claimed that when they cleaned the room the next morning, it was like pretty much like they just checked out. They didn't think anything of it. And Jens, the husband, was supposed to meet them at the San Francisco airport. on their way. They were going to all go to Arizona.
Yeah, and they were going to, well, he went to his meeting. They were going to go to the Grand Canyon and also
Yeah,
show
Sylvina.
Sylvina.
Also, I've heard great things about the Grand Canyon.
Well,
So all
I've been
beautiful.
there.
You have,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like when people take pictures there, it looks fake. Like the background's just
Yeah,
not
I
even. Did you even go?
I pushed my husband off the edge.
Well, you
So
probably wish in hindsight that you
in
did.
hindsight, it's
Yeah.
2020.
But he was really surprised that when he got there, he did not see his wife. His wife was not there. And I think that she was a pretty punctual woman and she's probably pretty good at communicating because obviously this is before cell phones were very accessible, which is weird because they had car phones, but they didn't have cell phones. So anyway.
Yeah, but car phones worked like shit also, just so you know.
Oh, I'd missed that part. So, like I said, he was really surprised, and he was even more surprised when he called the car company that she had rented her car off of, and they also said that they had not heard from her and she'd missed her deadline of return.
Yeah, they were feeling really nervous about it because the car was missing.
Yeah, and it's a nice, back then it was a nice car, right? So, local police and Yosemite Park rangers pretty much began to search right away because they were out hiking. So they
Well,
thought
yeah.
maybe they got lost. Maybe, the suspicion was pretty much that they wandered off the main hiking paths. And sometimes that happens, right? You
And
see,
didn't the dad just go golfing in Arizona?
yeah,
Yeah, because he thought that they were going to go there.
yeah.
So he just went, but they still never came. So
Well, he assumed that they just maybe he missed the communication. Maybe they,
yeah, maybe
he
he
missed
didn't
them.
listen. But
Yeah,
then,
like if Carlos's case, if I told him, he wouldn't know anything because literally I have to repeat things to him. I tell him stuff, and like 3 weeks later, he'll say something, and I'm like, I told you that. And he's like, oh, he literally wasn't there for the conversation. So then, out of nowhere, 4 weeks later, her wallet was found. Carol's wallet was found in Modesto, which is kind of far from Yosemite.
Modesto is where Scott Peterson and Lacey
Yes,
Peterson lived. Oh my
yes.
God.
So for weeks and weeks, police, family, volunteers, everyone searched the area near Yosemite National Park. They used helicopters, people on
Well, and
skis.
that is such a big area.
Huge. It's huge.
And then like, woo, the wallet shows up in Modesto, not even near where they're looking.
No. And so by this time, obviously, they were looking for the car. They were looking for signs of them. They were looking for anything. They were obviously desperate at this point for any kind of lead because they had nothing.
So a couple weeks later, after looking, FBI agent James Maddock, who was then placed in charge of the investigation, um, did a press release saying that we're almost certain that these women were victims of a violent crime.
Especially finding a wallet with all of your things in it. No one has taken anything. No one has, right? Because it's like, okay, either they were robbed and someone took their wallet, or what's the other means of them not being with her wallet and
Well,
then
and
missing?
especially like they're a family. Yeah, like I mean, stuff just did not add up. They're a family on a trip with two young girls. The wife wasn't someone that was just gonna take off and like
No.
hookers and blow it.
No,
Right?
no.
So like that was probably
No, it wasn't in her character to just go off the rails and with two young kids, right? So really, after everyone's probably very worried, and then not only was Julie wasn't an only child, they had three other kids.
oh.
Yeah. So Jens he put out a $250,000 reward for information that would lead to the return of them. And by this time, obviously, like my mom said, they were kind of on the, they knew that they had met with a
Like foul
unfortunate
play, yeah.
circumstance. Exactly. So after a couple weeks, he upped it to 300,000, and still there was nothing. They even went on Good Morning America and they begged Americans to help locate their daughter and her children, or Sylvina and Julie.
And the other children, I guess, probably just thought their mom and Julie were coming home.
Yeah, but I think I was reading also one of the daughters, I think she was 13, the younger daughter, she was pretty much saying, like, in my heart, I want my mom to come home and my sister to come home, but in my heart, I know, because like, if I didn't hear from you for 3 weeks, I would know you're fucking dead.
Yeah.
You know, if I don't hear from you for 3 hours, I'm like, I always text you saying, "Are you
Are you
alive?"
alive? Yeah. Which is kind of creepy because in a lot of these stories, that's what people text.
Yeah, and they're not alive.
Do you
Remember
ever think that when you text
Travis's
that to
friends
me?
are like, "What, are you dead? Come on, answer." And he was literally dead, remember?
Do you ever think that when you text that to me?
Well,
Are you
sometimes,
alive?
and I'm like, fuck, I better not be like number one suspect, and they better not think that I'm fucking trying to cover my own trail. After a couple weeks, the family's worst fears were confirmed when a hiker found the 1999 Pontiac hidden. So it was hidden
And it was burned out.
and it was burned. So obviously, at first, they didn't know it was that car. A hiker just stumbled upon a burned car, which is never a good sign. And after several days, the bodies in the car were identified as Carol Sund and Silvina Peloso through their dental records.
Oh, devastating.
Then, some of the research I've done, some of them don't say this part, but then the police somehow came across a letter with a map saying, "I had fun with this one," with an X.
Yeah.
And when they went and searched on March 25th, that's when Julie Sund's body was discovered. And it was discovered near Pedro in Tulum County. And it was really badly decomposed, and her throat had been cut. So her body was decomposed, but it wasn't as decomposed, so you could still tell her cause of death.
Well, and the other two they couldn't tell because they were burned.
No, they were
right?
burned so severely. And so obviously, we know when something happens, especially in the United States, and especially at a tourist attraction, and especially such a horrible, violent crime, like these women are obviously now they have been kidnapped and murdered, and not just murdered, but they've been burned after. And, you know, one of them, they've got this horrible letter saying, "We've had fun with this one," and like that's fucked up. So obviously, the FBI is hot on the trail, or
Well, they
they're
want to find
hoping.
someone that's this dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. So by mid-April, those who had been they had arrested people, and they pretty much they had 4 men that they considered to be the main murder suspects.
They were basically involved in the drug trade.
Yeah. And so the first suspect they had was Mick Larwick, Eugene Rufus, Billy Joe Strange, and Daryl Gray Stevens. And they basically did a press conference and they announced, "Don't worry, everybody. We have the murderer. Don't worry. Like, you guys go back to Yosemite. Everything's fine. It's okay." Right? So
But that was bullshit.
that was bullshit. Because then, on July 22nd, park rangers found the decapitated body of Joey Ruth Armstrong, who was, she was like a, what is
Like a
it?
ranger, right?
Kind of like a campground. She did something with, like, the National Park Service. Like, I don't
She
know.
worked on education programs through a partnership with the National Park Service.
Yeah, and so she lived in the park.
Yeah,
She
and
had like
she
a
was
little
always
cabin.
she was always talking to her friends and saying like how much she loved her job, she loved the area, like she was lucky enough to get that job. And
Yeah, and this is fucked up. Like I said, obviously now there's been 3 women that have been murdered. Now one woman who works in the park has been decapitated. So that's, and they've announced now, "Oh no, it's safe. Go back. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." But they're thinking that she was murdered on Wednesday, July 21st, because that was the last time she was seen.
and her body was next to a stream and her head was within the water that she and her friends had used for drinking water.
Ugh. So police found her car in front of her cabin and it was packed. So it was almost like somebody had come, you know, she was planning a trip. She was supposed to go for a trip.
To visit a friend, yeah.
Yeah, and so when she didn't show up, obviously they sent the ranger out to go look, and her car was packed, so that indicated that someone took her basically by surprise. And the difference was in the other murders is the person who committed those murders didn't leave any evidence or burned it, or there was nothing that they could find. But with the murder of Joy Armstrong, there was a lot of evidence. So this evidence led them in the direction of their suspect. And on Saturday, July 24th, FBI agents announced that they had a man in custody on a strong suspicion of murder and that a significant announcement would be made shortly. Hey guys, it's Danica. I know you've heard our commercial of First Sense Dog Dry Shampoo, but now's your chance to get some for yourself and for your furry companion. Use promo code MWMM10 at checkout at www.firstsense.ca for 10% off your first sifter pack. These things are awesome. With the sifter pack, you can try all 3 scents: restorative cedarwood, purifying peppermint, and my personal favorite, Zen lavender. That way, you can say goodbye to those stinky car rides home. I promise you and your fur baby are gonna love this product. Now, back to Murder with My Mother. So the suspect that they had was 37-year-old Cary Stayner. And Cary had been one of the people questioned after the triple killings in February. But at that time, there was nothing that linked him. Because what happened was he was a handyman at the Cedar Lodge and he lived upstairs. So if there was something found in the room, that could easily be, oh, I'm the handyman. There was nothing that really pointed them in the direction of Cary to assume that he actually had something to
Well,
do
and
with
he
this.
had no criminal record other than a pot charge in the
Yeah.
past. And every single person where he worked had good things to say about him, except for one woman
Yeah. And that
whose
woman.
daughter, she said a lot of bad stuff about him,
Mhm.
but that's because he used to stare at her teenage daughter in the swimming pool weirdly. And I mean, there's probably always someone that's going to say something shitty about someone,
Yeah,
but
but it
everyone
doesn't
else
help
didn't really
when you're
say
gawking at a
anything.
teenager.
Yeah.
So at Joy Armstrong's cabin where she was murdered, they obviously did a lot of forensic evidence. They looked for things, and there was tire tracks. So the tire tracks were very specific tire tracks, and Cary Stayner drove a very specific vehicle, so they knew right away. That kind of led them to know. And so because he lived, like we said, in the Cedar Lodge, he was the handyman, so he lived there. His apartment was searched in the later in the day, and that's where authorities discovered the evidence that linked him to Armstrong's murder. So the Maddock, Special Agent Maddock, he obviously had a hunch that turned out to be a good hunch, and so they pretty much right away after that they searched the apartment. They found other evidence linking him to the Sund and Peloso murders. So then they kind of knew that they had the right guy.
By Friday, July the 23rd, Stayner had disappeared from the area, and by the time they went to arrest him, they finally caught up with him at, of all places, a nudist colony, which he frequently visited.
Yeah, he was quite the nude guy. Everyone said there was one. I don't know if you saw
The
this doing the
girl?
research. Yeah, she said
Yeah.
no tan lines. Did you see that? Oh,
Yeah.
he had no tan lines.
We'd hang out with him all the time by the river.
Naked, and he had no tan lines. But he never crossed these creepy lines with them, which
No, he
is
never did
really
anything
weird.
to anyone.
No, you know what? Actually, because this is what made me think that I mean, you go to, I don't know who watches Dexter here, and Dexter's obviously made up, but if you see in Dexter, and like most serial killers and sociopaths, it's hard for them to actually, you know, formulate a actual, like a relationship. Like
Yeah.
it's actually hard for them to have relationships. So Carrie, I think it comes out later that he had been having these thoughts about doing this to people since he was 7 years
Seven
old.
years
I'm going to
old.
jump ahead.
And he never really even had relationships with
No,
anyone.
never. He could
No.
never, like, and he was a good looking guy.
Yeah.
And he just basically he was creepy because he didn't have the threshold of like, okay, this is inappropriate. He would have obviously think about it. If you have inappropriate thoughts about women, about murdering women since you're 7 years old, you can't articulate.
Well, and he never just had, yeah, like the flow of normal
No, of exactly
conversation.
being like, like, hey, nice
But like,
pants or whatever. I don't know. That's
do you
not a
think
very good
nobody
pickup
noticed
line.
when he was like hanging out nude by the river? They were just distracted by his cock, or like, I don't
Oh,
know.
maybe, but he didn't gawk at anybody. So apparently he didn't give off any creepy vibes, but to people that knew him previously when he was younger, he was
Yeah,
like
he
an
was.
awkward, creepy guy.
So they recognized his photo as one of the guests and notified the FBI at the nudist colony, and the FBI came and returned him to El Portal, and then he was put through a more lengthy interrogation.
Yeah, but on the way to his police interview, he confessed to the detective in the car because what had happened was him and the detective, when the detective found out who he was, Cary had actually been, this is why this is an onion story, okay? There's layers to this. Cary had a brother who was well known for something happening to him. So we will get more into that once we kind of finish this case. We'll dive into the second layer of the onion for you guys.
And people's excuses why Cary could have been the way he was.
Well, it's crazy because actually, if you look at obviously what Cary has done, his brother was in one way hailed as a hero. So obviously, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know, the anti-hero, if that means villain, because obviously if you murder four women and decapitate one of them, and you're probably not going to be looked at as a nice guy. So,
So yeah, he started confessing right away in the car to the agent about the murder of Joey.
yeah.
And
And I think pretty shortly after that, he started just confessing to the murder of Julie and Carol and Sylvina and all of them. Like it kind of just came out.
yeah, so in the car he was talking about the murder of Joey, and he was just saying it in a voice like he was
Oh, just like telling you
talking
about the
about,
weather.
yeah, the
It
weather,
was like
like.
super normal.
And then once he got back to the police station, he said to investigators, I want you to get a hold of some producers in Los Angeles. I want a movie of the week made about my story. So that will all make a little sense why he wanted that, but he just started talking to them about every detail of the murder. The same day, he snuck and he allowed himself to be interviewed by a reporter from KNTV. And during the session, he just kept talking and talking and talking. He started saying to the reporter, I am guilty. I did murder Carol Sund, Julie Sund, Sylvina Peloso, and Joy Armstrong. But none of the women were sexually assaulted, though.
Okay, totally projecting because 100%. Even the letter that he sent with Julie, with her whereabouts to her
We had fun
remains.
with this
Yeah,
one.
we had fun with this one. And in the same interview, Stayner admitted that he had actually been fantasizing about killing women for the last 30 years, and he pretty much fully described in detail that he had always thought about it. And he also went in and dove into detail about how he had strangled Peloso and Carol's son, and then took their rental car and from the lodge, and then took Julie to a lake, and he actually kept her overnight and then killed her the next morning. But he obviously, like we said, he said that he didn't sexually assault her, but her autopsy showed that she had been sexually assaulted. So right away, he's just bullshitting.
It's like he was ashamed about the sexual stuff, but not the murders.
Yeah, and he addressed the victims' families after the interview, like when at the end of the interview, and he said that he was sorry. He said, "I am sorry their loved ones were where they were when they were." So he couldn't even he's not even taking full responsibility. He's still blaming the victims for being at the Yosemite Lodge or for being at the Cedar Lodge.
Yeah.
He's pretty much saying like it was their fault that they got murdered because they were there at the time that I was there.
And he had specific information like about wallets and where things were found and stuff like that that they knew for sure it was him,
Yeah,
100%.
for sure. And so in room 509, which is the hotel room that they had rented, the Suns, they said that they had found they
Evidence of sexual
evidence,
assault.
yeah, of sexual assault and murder. So in his interview, he claimed that hair from his body was left on the bedspread in their motel room, and he returned later and changed the bed. So, like, remember how I said earlier, there wasn't a whole lot of evidence because he actually admitted that he watched a lot of CSI, different like shows that kind of teach you how to probably listen to a lot of podcasts. No, just kidding. It wasn't a thing back then, but basically taught him how to
Covers
cover.
tracks.
Yeah, he took all his hair,
He
he
vacuumed.
vacuumed, but there was still, now that they looked into the room, there were still evidence of him being there. So the vacuum sweepings that were taken from the inside of Joy's apartment were where he said that he bound her with duct tape and all that stuff. They had hair evidence from there. There was also bodily fluids on from the bed, like the bed sheet, which were also his. So if you're going to say you didn't sexually assault anybody and then you're there finding your bodily fluids everywhere, then either you did some other weird shit, still sexual, but, after just decapitating someone, and I don't think that that was intentional, but I mean, you're leaving your evidence everywhere, right? That must have been a struggle. And they say that Joy Armstrong,
fought back.
She fought back because he wasn't actually trying to decapitate her. He just said that he, she just
got carried away.
Yeah, he got carried away because she was fighting for her life, right?
Yeah, I mean, she was a pretty fiery one. She was a forest person.
She was, and she was also a ginger.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we've covered that in a couple episodes.
Yeah.
We come from a long line of gingers, so we know how fiery they can be. If you guys listened to 2 episodes ago, you also know that sometimes it can be a problem. But yeah, based on everybody that knew Joy Armstrong, she had a very good personality. She was very outgoing. She was a people person. She obviously loved the outdoors, and obviously
she was a fighter.
Yeah.
So there was a laceration found on his hand.
Yeah.
And fingerprints found in his truck and her blood and stuff like that. So
yeah. So Cary Stayner, like we kind of have hinted at this whole time, was on the outside very quiet, friendly. He worked at the hotel, or the motel, I should say, as a handyman. And other than that one lady that he worked with, nobody kind of noticed anything. But people that he grew up with, he went through a lot. So, our age-old question, is it nurture? Is it nature? This one, yes, a lot of fucked up shit happened to Cary Stayner in his life. But with the whole, I've been thinking of murdering women since I was 7 years old, I feel like that is nature. Some people are just born to be evil. I believe that.
And then, because what we're going to tell you that happened in his childhood happened after that. So it was like the perfect storm. As we also quite often say, the perfect storm happens to the perfect psychopath, and then it breeds the perfect serial killer.
Exactly. So Cary Stayner was born on August 13th, 1961, and his parents were Kay Stayner and Delbert Stayner. He had a couple siblings, notably, like we had mentioned, Stephen Stayner was his younger brother. So when Cary was 11 and Stephen was 7, in December of 1972, a man, a pedophile, had actually pulled up and on the way home from school while Stephen was walking home, kidnapped him and actually pulled over to a payphone and said that he called the mom and dad, which he obviously did not, and told 7-year-old Stephen that his mom and dad said that they no longer wanted him. So Stephen was to come and live with
Kenneth Parnell,
who was him, the pedophile. So after that, he had him for 7 years. So his name was now Dennis Parnell, and he
put him in school.
Yeah.
He moved around to different towns with him. Stephen, aka Dennis, was allowed to go to school, and he had friends, and he was still, by everyone's account that went to school with him, a pretty happy-go-lucky, popular kid who just had
he had a
no rules.
No, he had no rules. He could smoke, he could do all this stuff, but it was obviously like there was one interview I was watching. He had a girlfriend, and he was about 16, and they had no, not 16. Fuck.
He was
Good
14.
math. He was about 13 when he had this girlfriend, and they were drinking beers, and he started crying to his girlfriend and said,
I miss my real
family, and all this. So what had happened was 7 years into being kidnapped, because obviously at the age of 7, you're pretty naive, you're very impressionable, you're
easy
very
to control.
Exactly, yeah. So I think also pedophiles, when you start to get too old, they don't want to have sex with you anymore.
Or you're not attractive because you're a man now.
Yeah, exactly. You're starting to grow up, and they're not attracted to men. Or they would, not be obviously pedophile. But he talked someone else into basically kidnapping a 5-year-old little boy. And
with him, same MO that they did
with Stephen in the first place. And they kidnapped this little boy, and not even 2 weeks into this little boy being with Stephen and Dennis and Parnell, the pedophile, he waited until Parnell left and he went and took the little boy and hitchhiked to a town, because everyone was hitchhiking, to a town over, and went right to the police station and said, there's a famous line. He said, all I know is my first name is Steven.
Yeah.
And that's
Imagine
actually a
that.
movie. So all this stuff is unfolding. When Stephen was initially taken, it obviously took a really big toll on the whole Stayner family. The mom was always a little bit cold and kind of distant in the first place. So after Stephen was kidnapped, I mean, I think the whole family fell apart, obviously, right? The dad, because that's really hard, having a child kidnapped, because you obviously assume that they're probably never coming home. I mean,
That
not
they're
to be
dead.
grim, that they are dead. And I know that Cary, it was said that he had a lot of blame on he was felt very guilty because he was supposed to be with Steven.
Well, and the mom had said too, like that her favorite son was clearly Steven, and she had said it.
Yeah, which is horrible, but
Yeah.
especially when you have other kids.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's very there's a lot that had happened. So obviously, when his brother came back, there was also, because it had been 7 years of this, and now his brother came back, and not only did he just come back, he came back and he was kind of hailed as like a hero.
Because he had saved this other kid's life,
Yeah.
and
There was
yeah,
all these
it was
interviews and
all over
movies
TV
and
and like the
yeah.
Today Show. I think he was on the Today Show by like the very next day.
Yeah, crazy. And so obviously this is going to take a toll on the family that he's returning to, right? And it's sad because I mean, not to go on too much about Stephen, but Stephen, because he was sexually assaulted and everybody had known that he was sexually assaulted, because that was a big part of why he was taken in the first place. He would go to school and be bullied. Like they would bully
Teased,
him and
yeah.
tease him about like, "Oh, are you going to go have butt sex tonight with your boyfriend?" And it's like kids are
That's
so
horrible.
horrible, and like it's just horrible. So actually, at the age of 11, it was said that Carrie had a favorite uncle, but it also came out that he actually was sexually assaulted by this uncle.
Well, that's what Carrie said.
That's what Carrie said, and that's what other people had said as well. But what had happened, and actually, it's not only what Carrie said. This guy went to court, and everything was charged.
Oh,
Yeah, so it wasn't just what he said, but he also decided to live with that uncle later in life. So what happened was, and we've talked about this before, where there's events that happen in people's lives that can kind of trigger like a psychotic break. Even if, like we had said already, he had been thinking thoughts about murdering women and having like rape fantasies about girls since he was 7 years old. So that in itself is fucked up, and that was pre Stephen going missing. So, like I said, I believe it was more of a nature case in this instance.
I believe it was a perfect storm.
Exactly, like you said, the perfect storm. So, another thing that happened was Stephen was dealt a really shitty hand, and I mean, it was nice because after he came home, he was trying to obviously adapt to being back with his family. And eventually he did find a woman. He had 2 kids. He was married. And at the age of 24, he was in a motorcycle accident that actually took his life. So for Carrie, that was another trigger, because if you look at interviews of Steven when he came home, everyone's happy around him. You can see Carrie in the
He
background
looks fucking really
disconnected.
evil
And
too.
yeah, and he's always wearing a hat because while he was young and while Stephen was missing, he actually developed something called trichotillomania. Say that 5 times fast. Trichotillomania, trichotillomania, trichotillomania.
Trichotillomania.
Anyway, that is where you have a nervous compulsion to rip out your own hair. So he would rip out the hair on his head. And mom just admitted that she also had
I
trichotillomania
did
as a
have it
child.
when I was about 8 or 9 years old. Picked a big bald spot in my head.
Well, it's such a surprise. You're not a nervous, anxious person at all. So, yeah, so obviously a lot had happened, and Stephen was a national hero, basically, right? So you have to think now. And another weird coincidence is Kenneth Parnell, the one who had kidnapped Stephen, he originally, when he first took him, he was working at another lodge in the Yosemite National Park, and he kept Steven there for the first week of his abduction and just drugged him with cough syrup.
I wonder if it was a coincidence though, or if Cary.
Had some weird
Well,
sexual.
yeah, like, you know, sometimes stuff's in your subconscious too.
Yeah, that is true.
Try
So,
analyzing that one.
yeah, that's a good
Point.
call.
Yeah.
Yeah, so another fucked up thing actually that I want to touch on is Kenneth Parnell he got sentenced to 7 years and he only served 5, which isn't even as long as he had Stephen for longer than
Yeah, and he
that.
had abducted another child.
Then he got out and he tried to abduct another child. He tried to buy a child off someone else. He tried to buy, like, you could just get out of jail and be like, hey, can I buy this child? Like, no, you're gonna go back to jail. So he died, which is good. And yeah. So also right around the time that that Stephen had died, Carrie's uncle also died. He was murdered in the house that they shared together. The one who had molested him as a
Did they
young
know who murdered
child.
him?
Well, no, but everyone was kind of on the fence saying he probably did it. They think that that was actually one of his first victims.
Well, yeah, but
In
that
that case,
one would
wouldn't
be
have
rightly
blamed him.
so.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, if you think about it, they say that that is when he was triggered to do all this other stuff, which I don't know. I think that there's years in between, obviously, but yeah. So Cary Stayner is on death row at San Quentin because he completely, like we said, he completely took full credit for all the murders, and he actually went and, upon confessing, he brought them to the sites and showed them all the duct tape that was still there and the murder weapons and the murder weapon that he used to decapitate Joy Armstrong.
And he tried to claim insanity when he was on trial, but they proved that he had OCD and a couple of other mild autism and a bunch of other stuff, but none of those things made him not know that what he was doing was wrong.
No, and especially when you admit that you have fantasized about that since a young age, that's basically just saying that you've lost control and
Yeah.
you know that that's wrong, and now you have committed this heinous crime knowing that it's something that you did wrong.
Yeah, it's very crazy.
It's really sad too because, totally side note, but Steven Stayner and Timothy White, who is the little boy who Kenneth Parnell
Abducted.
kidnapped, they both died at very young ages. Like, they were both dealt really horrible hands. And if you watch the movies or the documentaries or anything like that, it was very Steven was like looked like such a nice boy. Like, he was just
He
gone through
was a
so
nice
much.
boy.
Yeah, even to think, about that. And then you look on this other side and you see his brother is like evil, right? So that's why they say it's kind of the good and the bad of Yosemite, right? It's like the evil and the, yeah.
So my boyfriend, I was telling him the story,
Hmm.
explaining it all to him, and he's like, "Oh, I went to Yosemite in July of 1999."
Which is when Joy Armstrong was
Yeah.
murdered. Oh my God, I wonder if
Yeah,
he was there before
he was
or,
camping there in July.
wow,
Yeah.
such a coincidence.
Coincidental.
Yeah, so that was episode 35, the case of, well, it's like a multifaceted case of Cary Stayner, but the murders of Julie Sund and Carol Sund and Sylvina Peloso and Joy Armstrong. So rest in peace, ladies. That's a horrible way to go. And the fact that he, again, most killers are just pieces of shit. This guy's obviously no different. But the fact that he says, well, I'm sorry that they were there when they were there and that
They
I
were
was
in the wrong
there.
place at the wrong time, and I
Yeah.
couldn't control myself.
Yeah, but typical.
That's a lame excuse, motherfucker. And
And
he's still
yeah.
on death row in San Quentin, and they haven't killed anyone in California for a super long time.
No.
But hopefully they fire it back up, and he's one of the first to go.
Yeah, hope so. But it's sad because, like we said too, he was not bad looking, especially as a child, like as a younger man, and he just had this anyone that knew him said that he couldn't form interpersonal relationships, obviously probably the autism
Yeah.
probably, played a big role in that. And I think also he was 100% a psychopath. So I feel like, yeah, it would just be really hard to form interpersonal relationships. And he basically, you have to have, there's layers, there's like levels to talking to someone, and then then you're dating, you're flirting, and you're dating, and but apparently he was just creepy from day one. So he didn't have that that gauge of like, am I creepy?
Or am I a killer?
Yeah, and then another thing too, which is kind of creepy. There was a lady, I guess he was dating, that worked at the Cedar Lodge too, in the bar, like one of the bartender or the waitress or something. But she had two little girls, and they would be there all summer because there was a pool right outside the bar. And so he was dating this lady. I guess somehow he formed an interpersonal relationship with her. And his I guess he was pretty good with kids, and he was teaching her kids. She had two daughters. He was teaching them how to dive, and by the end of the summer, I guess they were like great divers, and they loved him. He would bring them a Beanie Baby, which if you grew up in the 90s, Beanie Babies were. If you're Rick Soon's dad, then you know that Beanie Babies are all the rage, because he had my mom's ex-husband's dad had like two rooms with shelves on every fucking wall filled with Beanie
Cases.
Babies, cases,
Collector's
collectibles,
items.
everything.
That's a whole
So,
nother episode.
oh God. But what happened was he would buy these little girls every time he saw them, he would buy them new Beanie Babies. And it came out, he actually admitted in his interview that there was three separate occasions that he was actually going to kill her and rape her daughters.
Oh my gosh.
And so that obviously never happened, but think about it, right? Like when they found that out, it was very like devastating. And so yeah, apparently they took one of their Beanie Babies. They had the Peace, if you know anything about Beanie Babies, the Peace one that was a special edition, and they like flew it down the or not flew it, but floated it down the river
Joey.
for Joey and for the sons, and for Salvina for their memory. Because think about it, that you kind of have to have a lot of guilt too. Like that could have been us, guilt, but also
Relief.
probably a little bit of relief and guilty relief, right? Because it's like, oh, it
Yeah.
wasn't us, but it was these people, and it was so horrible. And so yeah, it was sad that when he worked up the courage, he took so many lives. And yeah,
So we will post some pictures of the victims on the socials pages, and I guess we'll probably include a picture of how beautiful Yosemite looks in the winter, and maybe a picture of the piece of shit.
yeah. Well, you always have to have a picture,
Yeah.
unfortunately, of the piece of shit, because most of the time, I mean, the cases we've chosen, yeah, they're a sight to see, I guess. But
So I did get a request from Brent, who's tied him number one spot for our number one listener.
I don't know. There's quite a few people right now that are top
Oh, Brent
spots.
still, he was the
But
OG.
Brent, you are up there still, of course. And you're the OG, so
Yeah.
obviously that has to go for
OG means
something.
original gangster, Brent, in case you don't know.
Yes.
But Brent would like me to do a case that I'm trying to do some research on right now. But unfortunately, we won't be recording anymore until the month of June. So
Yeah. So May's a really busy one. I have a birthday. My boyfriend has a birthday the day after me. Our son has a birthday. It's Mother's Day. My mother's abandoning me for the whole month, which obviously I can't do murder with my mother if my mother is not here.
I told her to get a guest star, but she didn't want to. So
No, because nobody else has the chemistry and flows with me like you do, because you gave birth to me. So, and no one says funny, inappropriate shit like you do on the fly.
Well, I'll be off in Asia saying funny, inappropriate shit there. Probably a lot of
I
it.
hope you learn
Because
it in a new language.
yeah, well, I
Come back
probably
and
will.
swear in different languages. But we are actually going to hold up to a new challenge when my mom gets back. I haven't actually told her about this yet, but we are going to start actually filming ourselves, and
I'm gonna be
actually,
suntan, hopefully.
yeah, it will be like night and day, because I am so pasty and pale right now, and mom is about to go on a 5 week long sunbathed vacation. So,
I'll look like the wrinkled lady from Something About Mary, and you'll look like
and
that we're
I'll hold an umbrella even when we're inside,
yeah, because we're only 18 years apart, but we're about to look 45 years apart.
which is fine. But that's, yeah. So
I'm
we're
fine with
gonna,
it.
yeah, me too. So,
I'm probably also going to be extremely well rounded after eating all the delicacies of all of the different countries I'm going to.
oh, I'm so jealous about the
I
food and
might
the
not even fit any
massages.
clothes when I come back.
Just naked. We'll just do a naked podcast. That'll be our
Oh,
OnlyFans.
yeah.
My mom is plump and ready for her OnlyFans performance. Really, it's just us doing the podcast but naked. That's it. So yeah, so we will take on that challenge. We are going to welcome ourselves to 2022 and start filming. And yeah, so that gives me, sorry, a little bit more time to have with this booby monster and all the shit that I have to do in the month of May. So to all of our listeners, until June.
Catch you on the flip side.
Yeah, and we hope you guys stay safe and don't get murdered.
Hopefully I
Or
won't, or else you
no,
guys are
because
gonna.
what the fuck? Who would I do it with then?
It'll be just murder with my brother.
Ah, that would be dull. It would just be him inhaling friggin' marijuana the
Joints.
whole time.
Okay, well,
But
I'll do my best not to get murdered while I'm on vacation, and
yeah,
I
please don't.
will have lots of stuff to tell you guys when I get back.
Yes, and so until next time, everybody, until June, this has been Murder with My Mother, the true crime podcast where I talk murder with my mother. Bye,
Peace.
guys.